that every time we want to have conversations about our leadership and governance, the first thing that we need to do is that let us delink our emotions from the conversation.
Yep.
If we do not do that, we cannot be reasonable. The moment you make up your mind that you have hated this president or that you have loved him before we start having a conversation with you about it, then we are going nowhere. Because according to you, when the conversation agrees with your emotions, you call it intelligent.
Yep.
When the conversation disagrees with your emotion, then you look for a label to the person who is advancing the conversation. So one, you'll say he was paid, especially when he's wearing a good hat like Odhiambo here. You'll say he's Kofia, where he afford the bill of taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
But for us to have an objective conversation, let us first of all delink our emotions. When we delink our emotions, then we can have very sensible conversations. And for me, it is about, can we be able to appreciate the reality of what is the problem and what is the mitigation? Let me show you how we usually have a juxtapose ourselves as Kenyans. There was a time a famous journalist used to photograph and take video of the airport while it's leaking. You remember that? What was our reaction as the people? Our reaction was that, look at this government cannot even just have an airport that does not leak. Then fast forward, the government tried to address the problem and fix the airport. What was our reaction?
They're selling our airport.
They're selling our airport. Now, fast forward again, look at the things that are now happening, and I'm just responding to most of what has come up about the State House. What if the media report tomorrow would be that State House was leaking when the president was having a meeting with the foreign diplomats? What would be our reaction? But then when there is an attempt for everything to be okay, again, what is our reaction? So we always want to have our cake and also eat it at the same time. And that's what I'm saying. First, let us delink emotion. Because when you delink emotions, you'll be able to really agree that there are certain things and there are certain things that are the truth. We really cannot be, and my brother here said that this government has done nothing, and then because we are almost at election, there is some constructions emanating from places. How can a construction emanate? Can we really wake up and we have a house from ground level to the top? It must have been happening somehow. Because it can't be AI. It just can't be that a button is pressed and then Mukuru affordable housing.
Yeah.
Another button is pressed and then Pangani affordable housing. So for me, I always argue that before we do anything, first of all, let's look at, is it true that the government, for instance, has hired between 76 to 100,000 teachers?
Yeah.
I know of some. Okay? Is it true that they have actually performed this affordable housing? And I always argue that this affordable housing is the first legacy project of any government that consumes that amount of billions of money that has a trace in every part of the country. What has always happened with all our previous governments is that when it's a huge budgetary allocation, then that project goes to the side where the president comes from. This is the first one that you can be able to find a trace of affordable housing in Turkana. That is a truth. Now, whether we want to have a conversation about whether do we need the house or do we not, that question was answered at manifesto level. Because before government is voted in, it comes and says, this is what I'll do. And then we'll ask ourselves the fundamental questions. Did they really say they will do affordable housing? They did. We'll come and ask ourselves, did these guys really say they'll be able to do something about the cost of living? Do you and me remember that at some point we used to park vehicles on the road because fuel, the only time you can buy more fuel is tomorrow? Do you remember that? Were we all in this country? Were we all in this country when there were long queues at the petrol stations because there was shortage of fuel? Were we all in this country when our unga price had skyrocketed to above 200 shillings? In fact, myself as an Azimio person, at some point went on the street and our protest was anchored on food security unga. That was the reason why we were on the street. So can we be able to say now we have selectively forgotten about that? Can we be able to actually say that this government did nothing about healthcare? Universal healthcare that was promised by President Kibaki. He is the one who promised universal healthcare. It came, there was an attempt by the Uhuru administration, which I agree to have been part of, to address it. But when the pilot project was done and there was noise, the government backed off because government did not want noise. Now this government has been able to implement this universal healthcare. Does it have its teething challenges? Yes, it does have its teething challenges. But have they implemented it? Have you been to a hospital lately and tried to use SHA? Have you tried it and it actually worked or it didn't work? Can you give us your personal experience? So that even when I want to say that I don't want to vote for President Ruto, I will say I don't want to vote for President Ruto, yes, but this and this and this he has done, but I think I want this and this. When we anchor our conversation around issues of the deaths that I saw and the protest and whatever, whereas I agree that it is unfortunate for us to lose people in the streets, I totally agree with that. But I look again and say, since 1963, which government did never had that at all? Do we want to remember that at some point there was the Wagala massacre in this country, where people were actually killed and cushioned by parliament that the investigations would actually not be done? It happened in this country. So these are the realities that we have to look at. It will be burying our heads in the sand to just say, no, this government has actually done nothing. I look at the pinnacle problem that I'm usually very passionate about, youth unemployment. One of the biggest challenges in Africa and Kenya in specific. Whereas most governments have done nothing about it. Has this government tried to address this thing? Haven't they brought back the program that, I don't know, I'm forgetting its name.
Climate Works.
The
Climate Works.
Yeah, the Climate Works. Yeah, they have now called it Climate Works. It was then called Kazi Mtaani. Okay? Haven't they been able, if you have moved to any affordable housing unit yourself, don't you meet young people there working? Many of them. Aren't you able to see that these teachers who are being hired, most of them, if not all of them, are actually young people? Aren't you able to see that in addressing this unemployment gap, these guys are trying to say, you know what, if the opportunities are not even enough in Kenya, we will try others abroad. And they have put up a Kazi Maju program. A program that we want to castigate today, yet in private, all of us have always been looking for these jobs abroad. In private, all of us are looking for the jobs abroad, but when government wants to intervene, want to make it look like it's not fashionable. I once asked a journalist on Citizen TV who was busy criticizing and saying this, we are sending children out of Kenya and it's unnecessary. I asked them, don't I see you people cut a cake when one of your own is hired at CNN? Don't I see you guys cutting a cake here because someone has gotten a job at Sky News or BBC? Isn't that Kazi Maju? So, whereas the only way we can move our country forward is we must start from the point of being objective and ask ourselves the fundamental questions. Tell ourselves that this is exactly what they're doing. And remember, gentlemen,